That's where you get your real advantage to having a trucker's hitch as opposed to just not even having it at all, just tying a rope, pull down and make some sort of knot. That is a bowline knot. Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about two knots that I use every single adventure trip that I go on, and I use it sometimes even just for mundane stuff like tying down lumber on the top of my car. So there's a couple of knots. One of them is called a bowline knot or a bowline knot, and it's got a couple of really unique features that kind of puts it above, you know, most other knots, and it's actually called the king of knots for a reason. And before I show you how to tie it, let me just say these are the two reasons, or the two features that really make it unique. Number one, you can tie or secure the knot anywhere along the rope that you want. So for example, if you tie a normal knot around an item, like a rope around a tree, or my wrist here, for example, you would tie the knot kind of right around my wrist, right? It's easier that way if you're doing a clove hitch or whatever, just a double, whatever, regular knot like you're tying a shoelace or something. Really easy to do around the item itself and then secure it, right? But there are times when you might not want to do that. With a bowline knot, you can do that, or you can have the knot anywhere along the line of the rope. You can have, if I were to tie it around my wrist, I could have the knot here, or I could have it up here, in different places. So it's kind of unique that way. And the other feature that is even more useful, I think, is that the bowline knot can be undone very easily, even if it's really, really, really tight, where it would be impossible to get any other knot undone easily anyway, especially if it's wet. This one is much, much easier than any other knot that I know of. I don't know every knot, but I know a couple that I use all the time. So that's the bowline knot. And just before we get there, I'll just tell you about the trucker's hitch. The trucker's hitch is a knot that you would use to tie down any item, let's say on top of your vehicle is a good example. So whether it's lumber or a canoe or a kayak, something like that. And you would tie down the center of your, whatever that it is, the canoe, along on the roof, right? But then you've got this big long item sticking out over your bumper, front and back, and you want to tie that down, right? Now you can use tie down straps, ratcheting straps and stuff, that's fine, but it's always good to know how to use these. And in fact, these are the trucker's hitch is great because you don't need a strap. Like sometimes straps, the fat straps can kind of vibrate in the wind. These are much better for driving, in the wind when you're driving fast against some wind, whatever. It just doesn't really whistle and do a lot. So you want to use a rope if you can. Best way to secure a rope, in my opinion, is a trucker's hitch. And I will show you how to do that. By the way, the trucker's hitch is good because it can be, you leverage, there's science, you can leverage it so that you really are pulling it tight. All right, sometimes it's really difficult to do that if you're not using a knot that lets you leverage. I'll show you exactly what I mean when we tie it, all right? Let's get into it. We'll start with the bowline knot. Okay, so here are the steps to tying a bowline knot. Okay, you make a loop like this. All right, then you take the other end of your rope here, you tie it, or you bring it around whatever you want to tie the object to, right? Bring it back through the loop, and then what you do is you go around the original rope, or the other part of the rope, and back down through the loop. And I've just pulled it really tight. You can see I've got a loop here, right? And so I made that knot right where I started that loop. And by the way, it's really tight, all right? So I can pull whatever I want and it's really tight. And here's the great thing about this one, as I mentioned earlier, right here, if you turn it just sort of horizontally, there is a loop, the loop up here, you just pull it down and the whole thing comes apart really easily. See? So that is a bowline knot. All right, guys, let's do the trucker's hitch. All right, so somewhere halfway between, let's say, your canoe and the hood of your car, you would make a loop. All right, so here we go. There's a loop, and then you would take part of your rope near that loop, pass it through, and then just tighten that a little bit so you've got a simple loop. Now you don't want to pull this because it'll come undone, but that's okay, that's not really relevant. So now the other end of your rope here, you pass it through or around whatever you want to secure it. So I've got just something tied around my waist here, a carabiner. So I've got it, the other end is right here, all right? So it's around whatever secure point that you're gonna tie it to. Then you bring it really simply, just bring it back through that loop. Now what you do here is you tie it, or you pull. The idea is to pull really tight now. Okay, now if you didn't have this knot or this loop and you didn't bring it through and pull, you would never be able to get this rope as tight as you can get it now. This you can crank as tight as you want. If you put your weight on it, you can pull this rope so tight you're probably going to or potentially damage whatever, you know, even the canoe itself. So you got to be careful. So now what you do when you pull that really tight, okay, I'm not obviously because it's going to lift me off the ground here. No, not really. But anyway, now you just take the loose end and right here. Now you're holding it really tight, right? I'm not, because this is not the right scenario, but you're holding it tight, and then all you really need to do is just make a regular loop, kind of knot here, or you can do a double one if you want, right? Like this, I guess that's a clove hitch. There, and really, that's it. All right, so the key here is this first loop that we made, where you bring the rope back through and then pull really hard. That's where you get your real advantage to having a trucker's hitch as opposed to just not even having it at all, just tying a rope, pull down and make some sort of knot, all right? Hope that's helpful, guys. All right, guys, thanks for joining me for my quick little tutorial on how to make a couple of really useful knots. If you guys appreciate little tips and tricks like this and maybe, you know, DIY projects, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It would be much appreciated. YouTube likes it as well. Helps me out. No skin off your back. All right, guys, we can work together. We can make some really cool videos, and hopefully I can help you on and on every year as you pursue little tips and tidbits that helps you in your outdoor passion. Thanks for joining me, guys. See you next time.